Okay. Thank you. Thank you for going.
So welcome to, I think it's this month's ACE presentation. My name is Alex Key, and with me is Christian Shay.
Hello.
We collectively work on .NET, Visual Studio Code, Visual Studio tools, and connecting to Oracle database, basically enabling all the cool new functionality you'll see in 23C for .NET developers, for Visual Studio and Visual Studio Code developers, as well as new features within those tools and within the .NET runtime that are, just interesting for the runtime that a lot of customers want to use for Oracle. So we try to enable both sides as much as possible so that Oracle database can take advantage of anything in VS Code, Visual Studio, and .NET, as well as if you are a developer in any of those, be able to take advantage of those. And for the next hour, Christian and I, we will talk about what is new and recent in our releases for .NET and Visual Studio Code. I think probably of most interest, because it's generic, will be VS Code. So I will let Christian start since he's the PM for the tools. So why don't you take it away, Christian?
Sure. Before I do that, is there anything the organizers need to say before I get started, or are you guys all set? I guess you're all set. Okay, thanks, Alex. Alex is going to focus heavily on what's new in 23C on the .NET side. I'm actually going to kind of take you through what's available in total with Visual Studio Code, and not just for .NET developers, but also for any kind of developer, Python, Java, Node.js, anybody who's doing development with both a programming language and SQL and PL SQL, and working with a database from Visual Studio Code. We try to make it nice and convenient, so if you choose to, you can stay in Visual Studio Code. Now, I'm not going to show slides today. I'm just going to do demo the whole time. Since it's all visual, it lends itself to that. So let's get started. All right, so what you see here is Visual Studio Code. I happen to have some .NET code here, but I'll also show you, if there's time, I'll show you a little Python snippet, because people use all kinds of different languages from Visual Studio Code. So while you're writing your application, you certainly are going to need to interact with the database to do things like look at your schemas and connect to the cloud and test things out, and lots of different things. And so we try to keep it so that you can stay in Visual Studio Code the whole time you're developing without having to leave if you don't want to. And some people do want to, but we just want to make it convenient for you. So to get started, what I'm going to be showing you is an extension that we have. And this extension is easily installable from the Visual Studio Marketplace. So if you go to the marketplace here, you can just start typing Oracle Developer Tools. I guess you don't even need to type too much of it, but the name of the extension we're going to be showing today is called Oracle Developer Tools for VS Code. And you're in the right place if you see lots of downloads, because there's a lot of Oracle extensions now across the. So, in case you just type Oracle, it might be a little bit crowded here to find it. But just look for the one with lots and lots of installs, and you're in the right place. Any case, it's very easy to install. You just click the install button. Now, right now, at the time I'm doing this demo, the version that's production is 21.6. However, within very short time, matter of weeks, a version 21.7.1 will be coming out, and that's actually the version I'm going to be showing today. So there's a couple features that I'm going to call out as I do them that are not available in 21.6. But if you're watching the recording, probably by the time you're watching this, everything I'm doing here will be available in the production release. But this extension has been around for 3+ years now, so it's had lots of time to get a lot of features in there. So I'd like to do, for those of you who are not familiar with this extension, is kind of take you through it, and I'll call out some of the new features that we have as we go. And so let's get started. All right, so So you saw the marketplace. So now let's, once you do install this, you'll see a database icon over here on the left side, Oracle Explorer. And when you click on that, it will show you any database connections you currently have. It will also have a few useful things here. Probably the most useful, as far as I'm concerned, is the question mark, which takes you to, if you click it, it takes you to the Oracle forums. So this is a great place to, when you're first starting out, if you have trouble, to ask for help. We have a thriving community here on the Oracle forums, and we'd love to see you come and tell us what you think and what features you would like to see. We are very heavily community driven. So hopefully we'll see you there. All right, now, before we go into the individual databases, I would like to show you our cloud integration. So the first time you come into the Oracle Cloud Infrastructure Explorer, you probably want to click on this little gear icon. It shows you how to configure the cloud connectivity with this extension. It's actually very easy. You're effectively setting up your config file and your key file so that we are authenticated to be able to connect to the cloud. So check that out the first time you come in there. Now, once you've been able to connect, you'll see immediately a root node here, and you can change your compartment, for example, to the location of where your resources are. Once you do that, you can do things like create a new autonomous database, for example, an always free instance. You can get a free one. Just for today, I'll call this AceDB. Now I've run out of my allotment of always free instances, just like everybody else does. So I'm just going to create this as a paid instance. So let me give a password. And let me go ahead and start the creation process. So now, stop that debugger here. And what you'll see is, if you look over here on the left-hand corner, that there's a database icon with a little yellow-orange ball. So that just means that it's provisioning, and you can hover over it and see that it's provisioning. Usually it takes about, I don't know, 5 minutes at the most, similar to what it does on the website. So instead of trying to wait for that, like Julia Childs, I have a pie already in the oven, already cooked, and that is my always free instance right here that I created some time ago. So let's take a look at some of the menu items that are hanging off of my autonomous database instance. So skipping the first couple for a moment, you can start it, you can stop it, you can terminate it, you can change the administrator password, and you can flip back and forth between using a wallet and not using a wallet. I tend to, for my demos, I tend to use a wallet just so that I don't have to keep authenticating my IP address if it changes. But it's all here, similar to what you can do on the website. And then once you have your instance created, now you want to explore it. So we make that very easy for you via Create Connection in Database Explorer. So what this does basically is gives you the option, if necessary, to download credentials to the local instance. I already have them, so I don't need to do that. And then it opens up a dialog with everything pre-populated. So you don't even really have to think about it. You just need to provide a password. Let me see if I can get this right. So I didn't even need to, think about where my wallet went and all that stuff. I think I probably got the password wrong. Yep, let me try it again, see if I can get this. Oh, what it is I'm supposed to be connecting as HR. The password is correct. Okay, let me close this, close that. All right, so now you can see, now let me get this Zoom bar out of the way. Now you can see I have it here. So let's just go ahead and explore it. So, oh, and you can make it a default connection if you want, so that any file that you open will use that connection. So let's see. Let's take a look at the tables. So it's pretty much what you would expect, right? You can explore your schema objects. For example, the famous employees table. So here's some of the options you could do. Generate some simple SQL, describe it, show the data. So we'll get into ad hoc SQL in a minute, but this is just exploration. But in any case, so for example, if I want to, let's say, select all the rows and a set of columns, let's see, these guys, plus maybe the hire date. Of course, I used Shift instead of Control. All right. And by the way, the multi-column select is a new feature in 21.7. Like I said, for those trying it out right now, it won't work this way, but by the time you watch this recording, it certainly will. But in any case, let me save this as JSON. Just, I don't know, pick a name. And you can see that we pulled it down. So this is handy for development. You can use this data any way you choose. Okay, and then while we're here in the Explorer, I'll just show you. Again, this is not ad hoc stuff. This is just exploring. Let me take a look at what I got in here. Okay, so I have a little snippet of code I got from Steve Feuerstein a long time ago from his book. But so this is what we're doing right now is we're opening we're actually editing directly in the database. So we're opening the PL SQL from a stored function directly here so we can edit it. This is a little different than script editing. This is editing in place, but you can see I have a little function here so I can go to my bookmarks. This is a good time to show you my ugly bookmark collection, but I think I have a names for fragment. If I hover, you can see what it is. And I can go ahead and copy this into the editor. I think I need to shift it a little to keep it looking nice. Return. And then I can just compile. Let's look at the output here. Looks okay to me. And the reason I am doing this is I wanted to show you that you can run this stuff right here to test it. So I'll say run, assuming the values are reasonable and scalar. You can type them in. Let me see here. Okay, so I'm going to provide that value emp. I forgot to show you what's in the code. So what it's going to do is it's going to, in the case of emp, it's going to generate a cursor and return that cursor. So just so you know what's happening here. All right, so the output parameter is a cursor, and you can see that I'm able to fetch it. So that's working directly here in Explorer. Of course, that may not be what a lot of people do for PL SQL editing. They probably will be working with scripts. So let's start by showing you some ad hoc SQL and some scripts. So I can say open new SQL file here. And one of the things I want to point out about this that's pretty cool is that when you open SQL files from here, like open existing, if you look down here at the status bar, it's actually immediately associating it with our extension, so there's no confusion, and it's using this connection. So you don't even need to associate your file with connection or our extension. It'll just automatically be connected and work. Similarly, if something is a default connection and you open any SQL script anywhere, in your project or whatever, it will also use this connection in our extension. Okay, so now let's try a few things here. So you can see it's auto-completing. It's using what's called IntelliSense. And I can hit tab to accept. And I'm doing it this way because I want to show you the all columns option. If you hit spacebar now, it'll show me the list of columns, and I'm going to choose all columns. And then we have a formatter icon here. I can format this. By the way, as far as formatting goes, there's a formatter settings. It's in a couple places. This is one of them. So it's similar to what you've seen elsewhere. So it's pretty functional there. And I'll go ahead and execute this. By the way, you can also hit you can use the menu, or you can do what I do and hit Control E, which I didn't do. See if I can get it here. There we go. And you can see the output here. It's very similar to what we were just doing. You can select some rows or all rows. You can select columns. You can save them. You can copy them to the clipboard, etc. Oh, by the way, I tend to do my work where I put my results in a separate tab. And that's kind of weird. Most people don't do that. I like it for the demos because I can quickly just close stuff and go right back, and I don't have, but a lot of people like to have the screen split. So that's actually very easy. You go to the settings. I'll just show you this because a lot of people don't realize this right off the bat. And you go down here to, where is that? You have a lot of settings these days. Yeah, here. So right now I'm sort of using whatever my default is for VS Code, but you can also say to the right of your tab and also below. So you probably want below, most likely. Okay, so that is if you want to have a split screen with your results. Okay, now one last thing as far as ad hoc SQL goes. PL SQL and such. So let's I don't know. I have a package called Shay or a demo. I didn't show it to you really, but I'm going to hit tab to accept it, hit dot, hit add person, hit tab to accept add person as my method. And you can see that it auto completes the parameters. So if I don't want to type all those in, I can just delete that and start typing them. And you can see that as I type, it will move through the parameter list up here and show me what's available. Okay, so one last thing regarding SQL is opening up a SQL script. So I have open existing file. So again, this is connected. I'm using this one. This is my demo script because it creates the HR schema and some packages, but you can see it's pretty long, right? It's kind of how do you navigate through this? Well, Visual Studio Code has what's called bookmarks. So you can look at the bookmarks here and you can say, oh, I want to look at this procedure, or I want to look at this table and this index or whatever. So it's pretty cool. And if you make a mistake, let me find an example, something I can make a mistake on easily. How about on an insert? We can just get rid of a comma or something. So if I execute this piece of SQL here, instead of executing all, I'm just going to do an execute SQL. You can see that we integrate with the problems pane here. So if you click on it, it takes you to the line in the code. So in this case, it's line 1166. The point being is that by integrating with the problems panel, you get all the benefit of Visual Studio Code's awesome ability to navigate through files. So don't want to save that error. Okay, now only got a little bit of time left, so let's show a couple more things here. So let me switch over to my local instance since I have a few more things installed in here. One more thing I wanted to show you was we are in the 21.7.1 release. We are integrating with a few things here. This actually is not a 21. What I'm about to show you is not a 21.7 feature, but we have explain plan and we have the ability to look at execution plans for already executed cursors. So if you click this icon or use the menu, it is, I probably got too used to not putting the select.
You're trying to use a 23C feature there.
No
star.
So you can look at explain plan and you have a couple different choices. You can do it as, actually, here's the menu items. You can do explain plan as grid, and you can do explain plan as text, and etc. And then the other feature we have that's exceptionally cool, now this is 21.7, is we've integrated with SQL Monitor. So if you look down here, it says execute and monitor SQL. So if I execute that right now, this is beta software right now. This is not coming back. But if I go to the, if I go here to real-time SQL monitoring, with a little bit of luck, it will show me my list of monitored SQL. Here we go. So this, if you've used Enterprise Manager, you've probably seen this before, but it's a list of monitored SQL. And there's the one we just did, select from employees with the monitor hint. And if you click on it, it will show you a monitor active report, which you can save and share with, let me see if I can get a little bit more real estate here. Share with your coworkers and etc. So this is a feature in 21.7.1. It's coming right down the pike. And it has, I probably should have shown a little bit more about that. Let me do again. A few other options here, just similar to what's in Enterprise Manager. You can look at the different types of, you can look at the top 100 by different types of metrics. You can set auto refresh. You can look at, within 1 hour, within 6 hours, and then each of these columns can be sorted. So see if I can get this to work. There we go. Hope I don't break it. I might have just done it. Any case, this is beta software, but like I said, it's going to be available in 21.7.1, so I encourage you to check it out. Now, one last thing before I turn it over to Alex, I want to show you is PL SQL debugging. So let me open up a project here. So I have a .NET application here. You could have just as easily used Python or any other application, but since a lot of you are probably interested in .NET, I'll just use this one. And I'm connecting to it in my code. I'm connecting to an HR, my local instance. So let me find the package that it's going to be calling. So this is calling a package that has it's using it's accepting a list of associative array and outputting an associative array. And then for each one, it's testing to see if it's a prime number. Now, while we're in here, it's probably worthwhile to show you that if you don't know what a type is, you can right click and say, go to type definition. And as long as you're connected to the database and everything is working, let me see. Go to, what did I do here? Let me try that. There, I had to do it on that one. So it'll take you, as long as you're connected to the database, it doesn't do this using file-based right now, but it'll take you to the definition of the type. And So we honor those maneuverable things in Visual Studio Code. All right. So we have this, and like I said, this is called from this .NET code that I have. All right. So the nice thing is, so we fully integrate with the PL SQL debugger in Visual Studio, with the debugger in Visual Studio Code. So the debugger in Visual Studio Code is really cool. You can just start stepping into a package here. Just start moving through it, and then when you're done, it returns the value. But for a real application, especially one like this that could have tens of thousands of values in the associative array, you want to use real code, right? So what I'd like to do is have my .NET code make a call in to this package with real values, and then debug those real values live as they happen. So let's watch that happen let's watch that happen. So to get it started, there's a few setup steps you need to do, but one of the big ones is I can't show them all here right now, but one of the big things you need to do is to start the debugger listener. Start external application debugger. And then inside of my application, under the launch.json, I have an environment variable that is telling it, when you connect, send this information to the database, and the database will connect back to me, my Visual Studio Code instance on this IP and this port. All right, so we have the debugger listeners working, and I have all the C# stuff built, extensions installed into VS Code. So all I need to do is say start debugging. Well, I need to make sure I have breakpoints. So let's check on that. So do I have a breakpoint in here? No, I don't. There, I set a breakpoint. And in my code, do I have breakpoints? Wait a second. Yes, I do. All right, so all we have to do now in the C# code is start debugging. Okay, so now we're going to execute the query, and with a little luck, we'll pop out in the PL SQL. So right now we're in the C#. So I'm going to hit step into, and there we go. Now we're in the PL SQL with the live data. There's the input values. There's the call stack for both sides. As I can step through it. And I can keep hitting F5 to move through it. You can see that the values are growing. The output values are growing. You can imagine the benefit of this. You have like 10,000 elements and one of them is triggering a bug. This helps you find it. So now I've stepped back out, and now I'm back into the .NET code. So you can do this easily with Java, with .NET, and any Oracle code. So I encourage you to check out my blog on Medium, Christian Shay on Medium, and I have a walkthrough of how to set up debugging there. So that is the whirlwind tour of Visual Studio Code. Please go to our please go to the marketplace, put in Oracle Developer Tools, find the extension with tons of downloads, and give it a try.
Do you want to put in the chat your link to your blog? I put in the chat the Python video you did showing, I think, similar, PL SQL debugging. In this case, you're showing .NET, right?
I can do that, but the people who are watching the recording are not going to see that.
Oh, that's
maybe
okay.
Maybe I'll have it ready for when you're done, and I'll just show it real quick.
Show a slide with it. Sure.
Yeah.
I already put in the chat the Python, and then the video to your Python demo, which is semi-equivalent to what you show, except it's Python instead of .NET. That's right. At the end, well, why don't you show the last screen of my, or if you want to turn it over to me, I'll show the last screen so that people can find where all our videos are. Yeah, thank
Okay.
you. So let me make this. Let me go to the last slide and make this. Hold on a second. I'm gonna have to go to the end of my slides. Whoops. Show this one. There we go. And then let me share my screen. Or you zoom, share screen. There we go. So if you want to see the video, I put the link in the chat, but you can also see our YouTube page here, which is another way to get access to all our videos is YouTube, then Oracle.net team. And of course, if you need to have any questions directly for Christian, here's his email, and Christian will share his link to his blog a little bit later in the chat. But another way to get to our blogs, actually, why don't we just take them there now? Let me go to
Actually, that's good. If you're going to show the blog, just show mine real quick so they know.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
I mean, the easier way, you can get to them is if you use that otn.oracle.com/.net, and our blogs are linked to from here, my blog and Christian's blog. And if we click on Christian's name, here's the Medium link. So medium.com /@ Christian.
And that first link is the debugging PL SQL walkthrough.
Yeah, this one right here.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Alex. Appreciate you.
No problem.
Doing this.
So, before I take over, are there any questions on debugging Visual Studio Code?
Yeah, I have one. I saw you using a default connection, and then all the SQL files that you might open are connected to that connection. Is that connection also stored in the workspace? If I save the workspace?
Yeah,
So
that's
if I
very
open the
insightful.
workspace, that the connection is opened automatically?
Yes, that's a very insightful question. So Visual Studio Code has the concept of a workspace, which is you can have connections that are only associated with when you open up a folder. Those connections only show up in Oracle Explorer when you open up a particular folder of code. That way you don't have databases you don't care about showing up when you're working on, you're working on Python and your HR application or whatever on one app, and you've got a .NET app using your sales database or something in another situation. So the idea is that when you open up the folder, for one, it only shows the databases that you want it to show. I assume that's what you're asking, right?
Yeah,
and furthermore, they can be default also.
And open up the default one as well. So
That's
I have
correct,
it
yes.
right away.
Right. So if you give this a try, if you just download it, just open up a workspace, and then there's a workspace tab, and then you can say, let me see. Actually, maybe I can show him real quick, Alex.
Okay, so let me stop share.
I don't want to eat all of Alex's time here, but so let's say I'm creating a new connection, for example. It lets you choose whether you want that connection to be at a user level or a workspace level. Now, if you do it at a workspace level, then it's going to put
Are you trying to share?
Oh, whoops. Sorry.
No problem.
Thank you. So when you create a new connection, I did it by hitting the plus icon. It gives you the option of a user versus workspace. We even have another one, which is called folder. So you can even have connections inside of a folder, inside of a workspace. But what I would do if I create a connection here, it's going to be stored in a settings file, which you can see here, inside of my workspace. Okay. So, and furthermore, I can also set it as a default connection here or up on here. And then that means that whenever I open this workspace, then the connection is going to show up here, and then and only then. Now, if I make the connection as a user connection, then it's going to be global to all of my applications. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, but I'm gonna write Christian an email.
Okay, no problem.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
The .NET developers appreciate it as well. So thank you, Christian. So I will give you guys a whirlwind tour of what we have new in Oracle .NET development as .NET developers. And we added a lot. I mean, Microsoft has been doing a lot of innovation and adding new .NET features, as well as the Oracle database has been adding a lot of new innovation and adding features, as well as the open source community in things like OpenTelemetry, things like that. They've been adding new innovations. So it's kind of on 3 different fronts. We've been trying to support all of those so that you guys can get the best of all worlds, not just both worlds, all worlds, as you do your .NET development with Oracle database. So one thing I wanted to point out, all the features I talk about today, you can, except for a couple, you can try out today. They are available as dev releases on both NuGet Gallery, which is NuGet.org, and you just have to look for the 23.x packages. So it could be 23.2 or 23.3. We just recently released a 23.3 update. So that's available to everyone. You don't have to be part of Oracle's beta program, and you can use it against Oracle's free 23C free release or against 19C database if you're using a new ODP.NET 23 feature that is supported with 19C, such as application continuity or async. You can still use an older database with that, so that works. And of course, you can get it as part of our official beta program as well. Although we are updating this NuGet more quickly than our beta updates, since beta updates generally follow database server times when they do an update. We're iterating a little different cadence. So you'll probably, it's easier and just more likely to get from here. To date, we've had over 15,000 downloads. So a lot of people are trying out our new 23C release. So what's in here? I will briefly cover just the new things in database 23C, because hopefully as being an ACE, as part of the ACE program, you've been briefed already on most of these things like JSON Relational Duality, where you can get fully updatable JSON views over your relational data. That's supported with our ODP.NET. SQL Boolean column data type, that's supported with ODP.NET in our 23C release. And SQL Boolean type, we already supported PL SQL Booleans in earlier releases of ODP.NET, since PL SQL has always had well, not always, but they've had it for quite a while. So we've supported that, but now we're extending that to actual SQL Boolean column data types. SQL domain and name and schema. So those dictionary objects are now supported. So if you're not familiar with these, you can store just some properties or constraints for what are the values of a column, for example. So if you want to restrict a column to, if it's a credit card number, so make sure that you have a certain number of digits for that credit card and only digits, for example, you can put that domain and name and schema to put that constraint in, or if it's an email address, something like that. ODP.NET recognizes that, so you'll be able to use that. The ability to use 23C annotations, which is sort of like comments, but additional property metadata for your database objects you can put in. Longer passwords, which are ODP.NET will support, since multi-byte languages are very restricted with characters if we don't give them a lot. So we support up to 1024 now, which is the same as the Oracle Cloud. And then TLS 1.3, which is the new version of TLS to make your applications more secure. So I'm not going to go into any of these because they're kind of general database features. Only leave you guys with the fact that ODP.NET we're supporting.
We don't hear you anymore.
Oh,
I hear him.
can you guys hear me now?
I can hear you.
Okay.
Are you guys able to hear him?
Ona, can you hear me?
Yes, I
I
can.
can hear you.
Yeah.
We can hear you, Alex.
Okay. Well, I'll continue on because I don't think the problem's on my side, but hopefully you guys can resolve the audio issue on your side for those who can't hear me. So let me get into kind of the 23C new features that are specific to ODP.NET that hasn't been talked about from the database side. And one of the biggest ones .NET developers have been asking for is asynchronous programming. So Microsoft has a model called task asynchronous programming. It's kind of their third iteration of developing with asynchronous code. And it basically, they finally got the model right in which the market has adopted it and said, yes, this one works because it's much easier to use than the previous two iterations. And what this allows you to do is have your code operate asynchronously on the client side. So you could do something like open a connection, and then you don't have to wait for that actual connection to open before the control returns to the application to do something else, or execute this query, and then the application can continue working on whatever it's working on without having to wait for that execution to complete. So it saves, it optimizes resources because you can continue operating on that client machine without having to wait for, say, a database response. And the benefit of TAP also is that it eliminates a lot of this historical callbacks that people have been using, made the programming much more complicated. They made it much more simple, and that's why it's more adopted now. And ODP.NET, we follow the same model as TAP uses. We have an async modifier. That async modifier indicates I want to execute this command, this connection open asynchronously, as opposed to the traditional synchronous operation. And then when that happens, a task is returned to .NET, and then you use the await operator and apply it to that task so that it knows at what point the application must return to in order to continue operating with that whatever result comes back from that operation, whether it's a connection being returned or a result set being returned, or just indicating that the SQL finished executing. And when the task finishes, the execute resumes, and you go on your merry way. So ODP.NET in managed version and the ODP.NET core version, we support TAP, and you can use 19C or higher. So you don't have to use a 23C database. You just have to use ODP.NET 23C. And that's available through the dev release that we have both in 23.2 and 23.3. So here's what some code would look like in an async example. We have this open async call for opening your connection asynchronously. Then you can do a bunch of other operations which don't rely on the connection being open yet. Things like writing to the screen if it's a command, line item command operation, creating command, and then setting up that command for the connection. And then when you're about to execute it, you say await task so that this task returns. And then you can execute your read, because obviously you need the connection in order to do your execution of your command. So let's see a quick demo of that. So I have two versions of this application. I have one that performs synchronously and one that performs asynchronously. And I'll walk you through the asynchronous one, but I'll walk through both. So this is my Azure AD sample. So let me open this guy. Here's my async example. So I'm using my autonomous database, but the important thing to see is I'm going to time how long it takes to open a connection when I operate it asynchronously. I'm going to have it sleep for a second, and then as if I'm simulating some other operations. And then I'm going to execute a query, and then I'm going to execute that query asynchronously. And I'm also going to read the data asynchronously and see how long it takes to operate. And all this is being timed. So I have two end time markers here, one for all the asynchronous operations and one for how long it takes the connection to open. So let's see how long they take. Should take a few seconds. Oh, well, for some reason it took quite much longer, 6 and 7.91. Maybe it's just starting up. Let me try that again. Maybe some startup issues going on with it. I am doing a query across the country. So, okay, maybe it's just kind of slow now. So let's try this synchronously. So I have the same type of operations, the same query, but you'll notice that they're not async operations this time. They're all synchronous operations. And then we still have the 1 second sleep. So this one should perform a bit slower than our asynchronous one. And yeah, since I'm using autonomous database across the United States, it's going to be a bit slower just because of the round trip. But usually it's not this slow, so I'm not sure. Maybe just today there's some congestion of some sort. But you can see with the synchronous operation,
Well, you're streaming a video, so.
Oh, well, yeah. That maybe that's it. Well, I don't know. We had about 6 seconds, and this is closer to 4. And then here we see that entire operations was 7.43 versus 6. So you can see that asynchronicity allowed you to do some additional operations, made your performance faster. So you can use these in your applications. So that's quite useful for applications that a lot of developers are looking forward to in 23C. And then on top of that, more asynchronicity is available on the database side. And this is a new database 23C feature that you may have heard of. It's called pipelining. And with pipelining, you have this asynchronicity on the server side, as I mentioned, whereas our async ODP.NET is client-side only. So that if the server side launches a SQL call, that usually has to wait for the next SQL call. That usually has to complete before the next SQL call can execute. So instead, with pipelining, you can just issue SQL after SQL after SQL, and those each successive SQL is not blocked waiting for the previous SQL to complete. So that is the benefit of using it. If you have a lot of calls coming in and you don't want to be constrained by waiting for each call to complete, you can use pipelining. To use that, you just use the same APIs that I showed you with ODP.NET. You have to have asynchronous on, which is, if you want asynchronous on the client side, you probably, you'll want it on the server side as well. So you don't have to use asynchronous ODP.NET with pipelining, but we don't think you're going to use pipelining without asynchronous on the client side. So we're going to use the same APIs. So you'll be using asynchronicity on both sides, manage ODP or ODP core. And to enable it, you just set pipelining to true on our Oracle configuration object, and that sets it to true for all your operations if it's available on the 23C database that you're using. Alternatively, with manage ODP.NET, you can set it to a setting, pipelining also to true. And just to compare the code, this is just regular async code, but the only difference is you see this pipelining setting to true. And the reason why we have this, we don't enable it by default. We have this on because it does change the characteristics of, say, command cancellation. Because with pipelining, command cancellation is going to change a bit, just because if you're issuing many calls, it becomes less clear which call you're trying to cancel if you issue a cancel call. But we want you to specifically say you want to use pipelining, so we have this as a property for you to enable. Okay, additional feature that we're enabling in 23C ODP.NET is app continuity and transparent application continuity. So I won't get into much details about app continuity because I think you guys probably know what it is because it's a very prominent Oracle HA feature, but it's often used in the unplanned outage case, although many customers are using it in the planned outage case. But it allows you to recover your transaction state, allows you to recover your session state, and for the on surviving nodes, and for the end users, all they see are just a delay before they can continue on with their work. And this works in Rack. This works with Active Data Guard. It works with Rack OneNode, so you can use it for any of those operations or any of those options. And it provides real end-to-end application high availability. Whereas, for a very long time, Oracle, we were very focused on the server side. We know that customers want to have true end-to-end HA, which means also helping recover for the client side. And this is what AC and Transparent AC does. So how do you use it if you are a .NET developer? We've actually had this enabled for an unmanaged ODP.NET for quite a while now. We're just bringing it over to managed and core versions of ODP.NET, which most customers are using now. We have it on by default. So generally, you should have no code changes unless you've explicitly turned off application continuity. So there's a connection string attribute called application continuity, and that should be set to true by default. So if you don't change your app, if you've never touched this attribute, then you should be good once you enable application continuity on the back end and use 23C on the front end. And so you can easily use it with any packaged app or legacy app. And all you need is just to upgrade that client side to use that. We support 19C and higher. And these are kind of the different places you can use AC, Rack OneNote, Active Data Guard, and of course, Autonomous Database. And with unmanaged, you've always had it, but now you can get it with managed and core. And if you need a code sample of this, which is kind of a proof of concept code sample, since there are no code changes, but some people need, want to be able to try it out and try a scenario in which there's a failure scenario. I have one here. Let me share that in the chat so you guys have that in case you want to take a look at it. So let me put in the chat. There we go. Okay. So let's continue on. AQ and TEQ are, are features that we are now supporting with managed and core. So AQ is our traditional queuing, allows you to store your queues in an Oracle database and use the Oracle database for your workflows. TEQ is more recent. I guess it's more modern, does more real-time messaging, streaming events, and you can work with multiple publishers and consumers. And we have the same API working with both. So your traditional AQ API, if you've been using it with unmanaged ODP.NET, will work with managed ODP.NET and ODP.NET Core AQ API. So we're bringing that AQ API to managed and core, and it's going to work with both TEQ and AQ. Although we do have a few more options for TEQ, because TEQ is being done in more active development. So so you'll see some more capabilities there. But for the most part, if you've been using ODP.NET and AQ in the past, you'll get about the same level of functionality as we kind of build things out. Because we are still in a dev release, there's a few bugs. We're still trying to complete some features to make it more robust. But over time, we should have the complete API surface that you're used to using, such as with unmatched ODP.NET and AQ. Vectors and AI, kind of a big thing we had in a cloud world, and we are going to enable vectors with ODP.NET and 23C. In January or February, I think we're going to release something for beta testers, in which they'll be able to use ODP.NET, be able to retrieve vector data types from the database, do retrieve, sending, and binding of that data type, and you'll see support of .NET data types with Oracle vectors, with .NET vectors, .NET arrays, and .NET string types. So you'll see that. Also, if you use natural language SQL, select AI, things like that, you'll be able to use that with ODP.NET, since that's kind of just a pass through with the Oracle database capability. Disable auto commit is something that we are enabling disabling auto commit, if you will. Auto commit is on by default, but a lot of customers want to be able to do commits without a transaction. So now we can allow you to do generic SQL statements, and after you want to have that SQL statement execute, you can have auto commit off. You can indicate that you want to explicitly commit then without starting a transaction. You can roll it back, you can save it, and do all sorts of statement management. And this is something with managed ODP and core providers will provide. And then kind of the last major area of kind of new 23C that's not related to cloud are .NET metrics. We're going to support the Microsoft .NET Core method of collecting metrics. So this one is better than performance counters, because performance counters were only available in .NET Framework. This is multi-platform, and we're going to support all the traditional stuff that ODP.NET performance counters we're supporting: hard connects and disconnects, soft connects and disconnects, active, free, pooled, non-pooled, reclaim, stasis connections, and number of active and inactive connection pools, and be able to monitor all that. So I'm going to wrap this up a bit. So I'm going to go over OpenTelemetry a little bit faster. But OpenTelemetry is kind of a new framework for collecting, analyzing, kind of monitoring, all sorts of, basically anything. And we're going to support that for your applications in .NET. So that's something that we are enabling, say, JDBC driver and ODP.NET for. And how to do that, we have an activity source that you start and stop. And And internally, we create one as well. And you can monitor all sorts of activities, things like executions, whether you're executing a statement, filling a data adapter, or reading. And you can also set up, we set up a child activity for things like measuring round trip. So if we look at what we get returned, this is kind of the OpenTelemetry data that we get returned. Kind of the key things is setting up a source name and display name, and some of the ODP.NET activities that you can see get returned. So let me do a demo of that pretty quickly and show you the OpenTelemetry one, right? Oops. Let me escape this. Escape. OpenTelemetry. Here we go. So I have an app here that is just going to use OpenTelemetry. And we have a few packages, the OpenTelemetry package, and a new package from ODP.NET called managed data access.OpenTelemetry. And then we also are going to trace it. So we have there, our tracing provider is going to be a console provider. So we add our tracer provider. We tell it what to enable. So we're going to get connection level attributes, recording the exceptions, instrument Oracle data read, and set context. We provide an exporter. We can have any OpenTelemetry exporter, since OpenTelemetry is just an industry standard. In this case, we're going to use the console exporter just to make it simple. And then what we want to do is then just run our regular ODP.NET application. We can specifically set an activity source if we want. So I've set one here, but you don't have to. It'll return the trace to the console even without it, but we're just going to enable it just to see how it works. So if I run this, we should get output to the console, these activities via OpenTelemetry.
Alex, we should prepare to wrap up in
Sure,
case
I will.
from the team.
I will wrap this up right after this demo. Boy, Zoom is really slowing this down. I mean, just to start up, this application is taking a while. There we go. And you can see how it's returning the information about this ODP.NET application. Here's the send execute request. Here's the execute reader. Here's the read. And then the activity that I created is retrieve data. And that's right here. So that is there. And I will share this source code probably in the next couple of weeks on our GitHub site. So I had a few more things to show, but I'll just, things like we're supporting Cloud Single Sign-On with Azure tokens and OCI tokens. That's coming up. That's not available yet, but it's going to come up in the next couple of weeks. We'll release those packages. Be able to store application configuration in Azure stores, so Azure App Configuration and Azure, their password store, as well as OCI Object Store and OCI Password Store. And then kind of the wrap things up was in .21c, we're still working on that. We're going to have .NET 8 certification and any Framework Core 8 certification in November or December. So we're planning on that with our 21c release, since 23c won't be out then. So with that, it's almost top of the hour. So wanted to see if there's any questions you guys have.
Yeah, we can take one or two questions. First of all, thank you, Christian and Alex. Thank you for today. I think.
Oh, no problem.
Thanks for having us.
Sure. Maybe another time as well, if you have something.
Yeah, we could.
We like to
So
talk.
any questions? If not, I want to thank everyone for joining today and appreciate your time.
All right. So
Thanks, Alex.
Okay, thank you, Jen.
Day.
Thanks, Christian.
Okay, thank you.